You really need to hear what this woman uncovered. It will change how you view the Appalachian wilderness forever. In May of 2024, deep within the Dolly Sods wilderness of Monongahela National Forest, West Virginia, an 18-year senior ranger set out to investigate a routine remains report filed by two backpackers working a remote ridge trail. Everything seemed procedural until she reached the recovery site. What she uncovered there wasn't just a skeleton. It was a sealed notebook, perfectly preserved, written by a teenager who vanished 27 years earlier. The final entry named "The Man Who Walked Away." By the end of that investigation, two families had been silenced for nearly 3 decades. A powerful local family had buried the federal jurisdiction entirely, and the one person who could have talked spent 27 years hiding in California under a different name. Only one person put it back together. Her name is Patricia Voss, and this happened to her in the spring of 2024. Patricia "Pat" Voss, 44, senior ranger from Monongahela National Forest, drives a forest green Jeep Wrangler with 214,000 miles on it, a cracked windshield she's been ignoring since February, and a coffee thermos that leaks on left turns. She keeps a laminated USGS topo of the Dolly Sods folded into the driver's side visor, not because she needs it, but because she has always believed a ranger who stops carrying a map eventually stops respecting the terrain. Her husband left in 2019. She did not replace him. She replaced him with a second shift. Before she opens anything unknown at a scene, she says the date out loud. It's a habit she built in year 3 on the job. It grounds her. That morning, when she says it, May 4th, 2024, her voice sounds foreign to her. Too loud. Like she's announced something to the trees. The dominant sound of the Dolly Sods in early May is the wind through the high-altitude heath. A dry, papery rustling, constant, directionless, so pervasive it stops registering as sound and becomes the absence of it. What's missing from it today? Birds. No wood thrush, no towhee, no red-winged blackbirds working the sedge margins of the bogs. Patricia notices the silence the moment she steps out of the Jeep. She does not attach meaning to it yet. She will. When two backpackers radio in human remains off-trail, a dense rhododendron thicket 3 miles below the Red Creek drainage, Patricia doesn't treat it as urgent. Exposure deaths happen in the sods, especially after brutal spring transitions. She hikes in alone with a standard recovery kit, moving through terrain that smells like cold iron and wet peat. The sphagnum moss gives softly under each boot, the specific sensation of weight accepted without resistance, like the ground is taking her in. She parts the rhododendron branches, and her professional calm breaks in one specific place. The boots, Merrill brand, heavy polyurethane soles, fully intact. She knows those boots, not personally, but she knows the production window. 1996 to 2000. Whatever happened here happened before Y2K. She is looking at someone's child. She photographs everything before touching it. 14 shots. On the third, the wide-angle establishing shot. Something in the tree line behind the remains is visible between 2 hemlock trunks. Fitted stone. The corner of something constructed. Patricia does not notice it standing there in the field. She files it in the back of her mind, in the mental drawer that has been getting fuller for 18 years. Then she finds the Ziploc bag pressed into the root structure of a dying hemlock. Sealed tight, still airtight after nearly 3 decades in some of the most chemically hostile soil in the mid-Atlantic. Inside it, a yellow "Write in the Rain" notebook. Cover gone soft as old skin. Pages intact. She does not open it yet. The notebook sits in her gloved palm, sealed inside 30-year-old plastic, and the wind through the heath does its papery, directionless thing all around her. No birds. Still no birds. Patricia Voss has worked these mountains for 18 years. She has learned that the Dolly Sods will tell you everything eventually. It just decides the order. She opens the bag. The state medical examiner's report comes back the next morning. Male remains, age 18 to 25 at time of death, estimated 20 or more years in the ground. Patricia reads it at her desk at the ranger station, with the yellow notebook beside it, still in its evidence bag, waiting. She pulls on fresh gloves and opens it. The handwriting is teenage, careful, almost architectural, the kind taught in a rural West Virginia school where penmanship was still graded. The entries are dated March 1997. Most are mundane. Trail conditions. A dispute over a camp stove. Someone named Marcus complaining about his pack weight on the climb up to the plateau. Ordinary complaints from ordinary kids doing an ordinary thing in mountains that were not yet done with them. She almost misses the weight of the final entry until she reads it the second time. Something bad happened. David came back alone. He says it was an accident, but he's lying. Marcus wants to go back down, but David says we have to wait. He says his dad will fix it. His dad will fix it. The notebook ends there. The pen stroke on the final period trails slightly left. The specific drift of a hand that was interrupted mid-thought and never came back. Patricia sets it down. She sits with that trailing pen stroke for a long moment. Then she drives to Elkins. The records room of the Randolph County office smells like old paper and dust, and something beneath both of those, almost chemical, the specific smell of documents that were handled too many times by too many hands before being filed away and forgotten. It is the smell of things that were meant to stay buried. Patricia will associate it with this case for the rest of her career. She pulls Missing Persons Report number 97-04421. James Jamie Ashford, 18 years old. Reported missing March 18, 1997. Case status: closed. March 25, 1997. 7 days. She stares at that for a long moment. 7 days. She has run missing persons cases on federal land. She knows the protocol: SAR deployment within hours, K-9 tracking units, a coordinated 2-week grid search between Forest Service and state police. She knows what a real search looks like. None of that is in this file. What is in the file? A Detective Frank Sutherland, Elkins PD, claiming local jurisdiction and running a 3-day surface search that went nowhere and then simply stopped. No federal coordination, no Forest Service involvement. Someone had kept the jurisdiction deliberately thin, had found the exact seam between local and federal authority, and sewn it shut before anyone noticed the seam existed. David Harwell's name appears once. In the margin, no recorded statement, no date of interview, just the name, circled in pencil by someone who apparently thought better of it midway through. The circle is not quite closed. That small gap in the pencil line will stay with Patricia for weeks. She runs Dwight Harwell through the county records. What comes back is the social topography of a small West Virginia town rebuilt around a single family. Harwell Construction, Harwell Realty, a wing of the regional hospital bearing the name. A county commissioner seat held from 1989 to 2003. And a 1997 letter in the county commission archives. Dwight Harwell formally requesting that the Forest Service defer to local law enforcement expertise in the Ashford matter. The letter is polite, civic-minded. It reads exactly like a door being closed from the inside. Sutherland's personnel file shows he retired in 2001 with a full pension, 4 years early, under a provision that required sign-off from the county commissioner's office. Nothing in the file explains the timing. Patricia writes down the number anyway. She is packing up to leave when she notices the notebook's back cover. 2 water stains. One absorbed deep into the grain of the degraded plastic. Bog water, soaked in over decades, dark and even. The second stain is slightly higher, slightly different in color. The kind of difference you would not see unless you were looking at both at the same time in good light. She photographs it. She does not mention it to anyone. Outside, the Randolph County parking lot is bright and completely ordinary. A woman loads groceries into a minivan. A teenager sits on the curb eating a sandwich. Patricia stands next to her Jeep with the evidence bag under her arm, and the specific feeling of a person who has just walked into a room and understood, without being told, that something in it has already been moved. She opens the Jeep. The thermos leaks on the left turn out of the lot. She already knows she is going back to the Sods. The call from the deputy AG comes on a Wednesday. No email, no paperwork, just his voice, flat and careful, in the tone he uses when he is telling her something he cannot officially say. 30 days. That is the window before the case gets formally escalated, or quietly handed back to Randolph County and filed under the same closed status it has held since 1997. The window is not in writing. It does not exist on paper anywhere. Patricia has 23 days left when she hangs up and starts making calls. Lucas Brenner, 45, software company owner out of Seattle. He takes the call on the second ring. That alone tells Patricia something. His voice is controlled, the voice of a man who has managed people for 20 years and learned to keep the pitch flat when the subject matter wants to pull it high. But his pauses are one beat too long. The specific pauses of a man who has carefully rehearsed what he is not going to say. When Patricia identifies herself and mentions the Dolly Sods, the intake of breath on the other end is almost inaudible. Almost. She grips the pen. The pressure mark it leaves on her right index finger will still be there an hour later, a red crescent pressed into the skin, the color of something that had no business being there. David's father said it was better if we didn't make a big deal about it, Lucas says. He said Jamie just got lost in the blizzard conditions and died of exposure, which happens up there. We went along with it because we were kids and terrified. David's father was very clear about what would happen to our families in town if we said anything different. Patricia keeps her voice level. She asks where he was when Jamie died. The pause lasts 4 seconds. She counts them. I was with him at the beginning of the trail split, Lucas says, and then I wasn't. She has a witness on record now. She has the shape of a cover-up. She has a family name attached to a threat made to children on a mountain in 1997. Thomas Webb will not speak on the phone. His message back is 3 words. Please come in person. No location, no day or time. Just come. Patricia drives 5 hours on a Tuesday morning into eastern Kentucky, on the kind of mountain roads that do not widen for 2 lanes of traffic. They simply narrow until one driver or the other decides to back up. The steering wheel is cold through her gloves, which are too thin for a May morning that dropped back to 38 degrees overnight. 5 hours of that. The road narrowing the whole way like it has an opinion about whether she should be here. Webb meets her in the kitchen of his church. 2 mugs of coffee already on the table when she walks in. He has been waiting long enough to know exactly how long she would take. He is a careful man, measured, the kind of careful that is not the same thing as calm. He folds his hands on the table and speaks in the practiced cadence of someone who has delivered difficult truths from a pulpit for 20 years and learned that the delivery is the only thing you can control. David said Jamie fell, Webb tells her. When I asked what he meant, David got this look, rage and fear both at once. He said, "Don't ask questions about this, ever. His father would take care of it. Sutherland closed the case in a week." Patricia looks at him across the worn table. The pew wood beneath her is harder than she expected, smooth in the center where thousands of people have sat before her, all of them seeking something. Thomas Webb spent 27 years knowing what happened on that mountain. He built a life of ministry on top of that silence. She looks at him for a long moment and makes a deliberate choice. She does not ask him why. That silence goes into the same mental drawer as the water stains on the notebook cover and the pencil circle that didn't quite close. What it means is not hers to decide. She leaves it there for whoever needs it. David Harwell is not hard to find. A minor transposition of his last name. The kind of variation a man might maintain without technically lying if anyone ran a routine check. Marin County, California. An attorney on file. The attorney calls back in 6 hours. The speed of that callback tells Patricia more than the words ever could. My client denies any wrongdoing. The 1997 case was thoroughly investigated by local authorities and closed. Any further contact should be directed to this office. Airtight. Practiced, ready. On the drive back from Kentucky, Patricia's radio cuts out on a stretch of Route 219 and stays dead for 11 minutes. When it comes back, it is mid-sentence, a news segment, something about a land acquisition in Grant County. She does not know why she writes down the mile marker where the signal died. She writes it down anyway. 17 days left. 9 days. Patricia has 2 witnesses on record, a journal with a dying accusation, and documented proof of a jurisdiction block built specifically to make sure none of it was ever found. It should feel like enough. It doesn't. The tin box she is about to find has no chain of custody. She will locate it alone, without a witness or a body camera running. A defense attorney with David Harwell's resources will take that apart in 20 minutes. Patricia understands, lacing up her boots in the Jeep's back seat at 05:45 on a Thursday morning, that evidence is not justice. And justice in a small West Virginia county with a family named Harwell is not the same thing as justice anywhere else. She goes back to the site anyway. She hikes in at 0600. By the time she reaches the recovery site, the temperature has dropped 12 degrees, and fog has risen from the upland bogs. Dense, low. It makes the boulder fields look like they're floating several inches above the earth. The rocks hanging in gray. Nothing. The rhododendron has reclosed around the site. She forces through it again. Branches drag across her jacket in the specific way of things that don't quite grab. She pulls out her phone and scrolls to the 3rd case photograph, the wide-angle establishing shot from May 4th. The morning she said the date out loud, and her voice sounded wrong in the silence. She sees what she missed. 40 yards behind where the remains were recovered, visible through a gap between 2 hemlock trunks, fitted stone. The corner of something constructed, not a natural formation, built deliberately, and then left for the mountain to take back. Her sobriety sponsor used to say, "The moment you start explaining away the thing that scared you is when you're in real trouble." That voice surfaces now as Patricia catches herself thinking. Probably just an old survey marker. It stops her from thinking it twice. She moves toward it. The fog is thick enough to taste. Iron and old water and something beneath both. A bass note Patricia has worked these mountains for 18 years and never been able to name. Her radio goes to static. Her phone drops to no signal. She navigates by a dead snag she GPS marked 3 weeks ago, pushing through the boulder field by memory alone. The foundation emerges from the hemlock stand like something surfacing, roughly 12 by 15 feet, collapsed inward, stones reclaimed by root growth and frost heave, the kind of structure that appears in old Forest Service survey maps as historic hunting structure. No value. Inside the collapsed walls, partially exposed where a root has lifted the stone, a rusted tin box, lid still seated. 2 photographs inside. March 1997 vintage. She can date the film by its specific cyan cast, the color signature of that era before digital killed it. Both show 4 teenage boys on a mountain trail. In the first photograph, all 4 are laughing, genuine. The specific looseness of boys who have no idea what the next 48 hours will ask of them. In the second photograph, only 3 are looking at the camera. The 4th boy is looking at something off-frame, to the left. His expression is the expression of someone who has just made a decision they cannot take back. Readable in the specific way that decisions register in 17-year-old faces before they learn to hide them. The cold pushes through the seams of her jacket, wet iron off the old tin. The photographs feel lighter in her gloved hand than they have any right to feel for what they contain. The fog has pressed in so dense that the hemlock stand 20 feet behind her has gone gray and formless, the trees dissolved into nothing. Silence. Then, sound. Bilateral. 2 points simultaneously, equidistant from where she stands. One in the rhododendron to her left, one to her right, the same distance on both sides. Not animal, too regular, too patient. Patricia does not move. The sounds stop. The fog holds. Below the boulder field, the wind moves through the high heath the way it always does. Dry, papery, directionless. No birds. Still no birds. She does not know what made those sounds. She will not find out today. The tin box goes into her field kit. She walks out straight through the boulder field, eyes forward, the fog closing behind her with each step, like a door being pulled shut from the other side. She does not look back. 3 months later, Lucas Brenner gave his full formal statement to the West Virginia State Police on June 12th. He cried once, briefly, midway through, then went clinical and methodical for the remaining 2 hours. He told Patricia afterward that he had been practicing that statement in his head for 27 years without knowing he was doing it. Thomas Webb submitted a written declaration through his attorney. He has not spoken publicly. He continues to serve his congregation in eastern Kentucky. Whether that constitutes courage or cowardice is a question Patricia has decided is not hers to answer. David Harwell remains in Marin County, California. His attorney has filed 3 motions in the preliminary grand jury proceedings. He has not returned to West Virginia. His name has not appeared in a single West Virginia newspaper. The Harwell family holdings are under a separate civil investigation that Patricia is not part of and cannot discuss. Jamie Ashford's younger sister, Sarah, 41 years old, identified the remains on June 3rd. She buried her brother in Elkins on a Thursday morning with 11 people present. Standing at the grave, she said, to no one in particular, "We finally have answers. We can bury my brother." Patricia was not there. She had been asked. She declined. She is still not entirely sure why, and she has stopped asking herself. The case is still open. She is back in the Dolly Sods on routine patrol in August. The fog is gone. The sky is the particular Appalachian blue that exists nowhere else, hard and bright and absolute, the kind of sky that makes the ridgelines look close enough to step onto. She passes the rhododendron thicket without stopping. She does not go back to the stone foundation. The birds are back. Wood thrush. Towhee. The specific fullness of sound that means the mountain has decided to be present today. Below her, through the tree line, the stone formation is visible in the August light, smaller than she remembered, more ordinary. She thinks about the fourth boy in the photograph, the one not looking at the camera. The 4 names in the journal are Jamie, David, Lucas, and Marcus. Marcus appears in the missing persons file. His interview notes are listed. His interview notes are missing. Patricia walks the ridge. She keeps moving. Some places in the Appalachian Mountains remember everything they have ever been given. The soil is too acidic for paper, too dense for signal, too old for the kind of authority that travels paved roads and carries a badge from town. What survives up there survives because it was built to, or because no one thought to come back for it. The most dangerous thing in the Dolly Sods wilderness was never the weather, never the terrain, never the isolation. It was the phone call made by a man named Dwight Harwell before the March snow had even melted, to a detective in Elkins who understood exactly what was being asked of him. The case is still open. David Harwell is still in California, and somewhere in a grand jury room in Elkins, West Virginia, someone is reading the last page of a dead boy's notebook out loud for the very first time. In these mountains, what is buried is not always gone. It is just waiting for the right pair of boots to walk over it.